There is a storage facility off Interstate 10 in Tucson, Arizona. 400 units sit behind a chain link fence topped with razor wire. Orange security lights buzz from sundown to sunrise. At exactly 5:55 every morning, the door of Unit 247 opens from the inside. A man steps out. He locks a padlock behind him. He walks across the gravel toward the chain link fence carrying something folded under his arm. His name is Dale. He is 58 years old. He has been living inside that unit for 3 years and 7 months. The facility manager does not know he is there. The other tenants do not know he is there. The Tucson police drive past every night on patrol, and they do not know he is there. And what Dale does in the next 4 minutes between 5:55 and 5:59 is the entire reason this has gone undetected for 15 years. I will show you what he does. But first, there are 3 things you need to understand. The first is what the inside of that unit looks like. The second is the sentence buried in a 2019 Department of Veterans Affairs memo that explains why Dale lives there at all. The third is what happened in Phoenix on the night of October 14, 2022, to a man named Anthony Reeves. Anthony did everything Dale does. He followed every rule. He still did not survive the night. I will tell you what he did wrong at the end of this video, because if you ever find yourself standing inside one of these units and the statistics on who ends up there should worry you more than you think. The mistake Anthony made is the one that kills you. Tonight, somewhere in America, there are roughly 11,000 men doing exactly what Dale is doing. They are veterans. They serve this country, and they are sleeping inside rented storage units because every other system designed to catch them failed. The official count of homeless veterans in America for the year 2023 was 35,574. That number comes from the Department of Housing and Urban Development annual point-in-time count, conducted on a single night in January by volunteers walking through shelters and tent encampments. The methodology is simple. If a volunteer sees you sleeping on a sidewalk, you are counted. If you are inside a shelter, you are counted. If you are anywhere else, you do not exist. Anywhere else includes the unit Dale is locking behind him this morning. Researchers at the National Coalition for Homeless Veterans estimate the real number is 3 to 4 times the official count. Somewhere between 100,000 and 140,000 American veterans are unhoused on any given night. The methodology was written in 1984, when shelters and street encampments accounted for nearly all of the homeless population. 40 years later, the country has invented entirely new categories of invisible homelessness. The federal government has chosen not to update the count. That choice is not bureaucratic inertia, it is policy. What you do not measure, you do not have to fund. I need to tell you something about the men inside these units. The fastest growing demographic in storage unit habitation right now is not Vietnam veterans. The Vietnam generation is dying. Approximately 900 Vietnam veterans die in the United States every month. The fastest growing demographic is men in their 50s, men who had office jobs in 2019, men who had mortgages and 401k statements, and children in college, men who lost the job in a layoff, lost the apartment in a rent hike, lost the savings in a medical bill, and ran out of friends willing to let them sleep on a couch. If you were laid off this year, the math that brought Dale to Unit 247 is the same math sitting on your kitchen table tonight. The distance between a paid mortgage and a padlocked storage unit is approximately 14 months. The Federal Reserve published that figure in 2023. Almost no one reported it. I know what the inside of one of these units smells like. I know what 46 degrees feels like at 4 in the morning when you are 58 years old and the Mylar blanket on the wall is the only thing between you and the outside air. I know what it sounds like when the security camera on the corner of the building sweeps its slow arc across the gravel, and you hold your breath inside the box because you are not entirely sure whether the camera can see through corrugated steel. The system inside Dale's unit cost him approximately $200. Heat, water, power, all of it built by a man who once led a fire team across the Iraqi desert in 1991. He has a Purple Heart in a shoebox under what he calls his bed. He has not told anyone in his current life that the metal exists. He stopped telling people he was a veteran in 2018 after the third HUD-VASH housing application was returned to him with a procedural error he did not understand and could not afford to appeal. But we will get to the system. First, I need to tell you about the morning ritual, because the system is not what keeps Dale invisible. The morning is. At 5:55 in the morning, Dale opens the door of his unit. He has been awake since 4:30 in the morning. He has already folded his cot, packed his sleeping bag into a duffel, and arranged the interior of the unit to look exactly like every other storage unit in the facility. Boxes stacked along the walls, a piece of furniture under a sheet, nothing that suggests a human being slept there 6 hours ago. If the facility manager opened the door at any point during the day, what she would see would look like the unit of someone who pays rent and visits occasionally. He locks the padlock behind him. He walks to a spot near the chain link fence where the morning sun first hits the gravel. He unfolds the object he was carrying under his arm. It is a 100-watt foldable solar panel, the kind sold at Harbor Freight for under $100. He sets it up facing east. He runs a thin insulated cable along the base of the fence back toward Unit 247, where it disappears through a gap he cut into the door seal 3 years ago. The gap is invisible from the outside. By 6 in the morning, he is sitting in his truck in the corner of the parking lot, drinking coffee from a thermos he filled the night before. He will wait there until the office opens at 8 in the morning. He will not enter his unit again until after dark. The pattern is the same every day. The pattern is the system. The terracotta heater inside the unit is $12 worth of candles, $16 worth of clay pots from the Home Depot garden section, and a piece of bent wire from a coat hanger. Dale runs it for 90 minutes every evening before he sleeps. A single candle terracotta heater raises the temperature inside a 10 by 15 storage unit by approximately 14 degrees over the course of a 2-hour burn. He lines the walls of the unit with Mylar emergency blankets, the kind sold in 2 packs at any sporting goods store for under $8. The Mylar reflects his body heat back into the space throughout the night. His total heating cost for the entire winter is approximately $38, but the heater is not what almost killed him in February of his second year. The heater is not what almost killed Anthony Reeves. We will get to that. The water system is $46 of materials. 7 5-gallon jugs sit along the back wall, refilled every Tuesday at a Walmart water station for 30 cents a gallon. A black solar shower bag hangs from a hook screwed into the wooden frame of the unit. A collapsible camping basin catches the runoff. Dale showers standing inside the basin. He pours the gray water into a sealed bucket and disposes of it in the facility's parking lot drain before dawn. There is a rule about the parking lot drain. You only approach it between 4:15 and 4:30 in the morning. The security camera on the southeast corner of the building has a blind spot during that 15-minute window because of the angle of the perimeter light. Dale learned this in his 4th month at the facility. Marcus taught him. Marcus is 71 years old. He served in Vietnam from 1971 to 1973 as a combat engineer with the 1st Cavalry Division. He has been living in a 10x10 unit at the back of the same facility for 51 months. He showers at a Planet Fitness 3 blocks away on a $10 monthly membership. His mailing address is a private mailbox at a UPS store across the street, $18 a month. His Social Security check goes to a Wells Fargo account he opened in 1987 and has never closed. He withdraws cash on the 1st of every month, pays his storage unit, his mailbox, and his gym membership, and lives on whatever remains. The monthly remainder is typically $412. Marcus is the man who taught Dale the rules: the 5:55 departure, the parking lot drain window. The unwritten agreement is that you do not speak to other residents of the units because acknowledgement creates patterns and patterns bring the manager to your door. There are 6 other men living in Dale's facility. He has only spoken to 2 of them. The other one is named Robert. Robert is 64 years old. He served in the Marine Corps during Desert Storm. He lost his house in a 2017 divorce, his job in a 2019 corporate restructuring, and the apartment he rented after that in a 2021 rent hike. He has been living in Unit 118 since March of 2022. He has applied for a HUD-VASH housing voucher 3 times. Each application has been pending for between 14 and 26 months. He has called the VA hotline approximately 40 times in the past year. He has been hung up on twice, transferred without resolution 16 times, and told the system is experiencing high call volume on every other attempt. The binder he keeps inside his unit contains every piece of correspondence he has received from the Department of Veterans Affairs since 2019. It is 3 inches thick. None of the letters resolve anything, but one of them, dated August 14, 2021, contains a single paragraph that proves they knew, proves the system was working exactly the way it was designed to work, proves that what is happening to Robert is not an accident. I will show you what that paragraph says. But first, I have to tell you about the MEMO. The HUD-VASH program was created in 2008 as a joint initiative between the Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Department of Veterans Affairs. The program provides rental assistance vouchers paired with case management services for homeless veterans. As of the most recent public data, approximately 89,000 veterans are on active wait lists for these vouchers. The average wait time, when measured honestly, rather than through the agency's own reporting, exceeds 2 years in most major metropolitan areas. In 2019, an internal Department of Veterans Affairs memo obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request by a small nonprofit called VA Watch contained a single sentence in its 6th paragraph that should have ended several careers. The sentence acknowledged that the application process for HUD-VASH and several other veteran assistance programs had been intentionally structured to manage demand rather than meet it. The memo described 47 specific procedural barriers that had been added to the application process between 2013 and 2018. Each barrier had been justified at the time as a measure to reduce fraud. The cumulative effect of all 47 barriers was a 63% decrease in successful applications. The memo did not recommend removing the barriers. It recommended adding 3 more. It was buried in a routine policy review. It was never reported in any major newspaper. It is publicly available on a small federal records website that receives an average of 14 visitors per day. I have read it 4 times. The sentence in paragraph 6 is exactly as I described it. Robert's letter from August 2021 references one of those 47 barriers by its internal procedural code. The barrier required him to provide proof of military service through a document that, by 2021, the VA had stopped issuing. He could not provide a document that did not exist. His application was denied for incompleteness. The letter is in the binder. The binder is in Unit 118. Robert reads it sometimes when he cannot sleep. The memo wasn't the worst part. The worst part is what came 2 years later, in October of 2022, in Phoenix, Arizona, at a public storage facility on Bell Road. His name was Anthony Reeves. He was 53 years old. He served in the Air Force from 1989 to 1997. He worked as a vehicle mechanic at Davis-Monthan and left the service with a partial disability rating for hearing loss. He worked construction in the Phoenix area for 19 years after that, until a workplace injury in 2019 ended his career. He lost his apartment in February of 2021. He moved into Unit 4218 in April. He had been living there for 18 months when the temperature outside dropped to 38 degrees on the night of October 14, 2022. It was unseasonably cold for Phoenix. Anthony was running a propane camping heater inside his unit. The unit had no ventilation. He had sealed the door seam with weather stripping to prevent the smell of cooking from escaping. He had done this because of the rule that Marcus taught Dale, the rule that everyone in the units learns within the first month. You do not let the smell of your life escape into the corridor. The heater consumed the oxygen in the enclosed space and produced carbon monoxide as it continued to burn. Anthony fell asleep around 11 p.m. He never woke up. His body was discovered the following Tuesday after the facility manager noticed an unusual smell. The fire department cut the padlock at 3:27 p.m. Inside, they found a fully constructed living space, a propane heater, a small refrigerator running off a battery bank, a folding cot, a milk crate bookshelf containing 14 books and 3 photo albums, Anthony's body in a sleeping bag on the cot. The Phoenix Fire Department investigation was completed in 11 days. The cause of death was officially listed as accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. The investigation made no recommendations regarding the storage facility, the corporate parent company, or the broader pattern of veterans living in similar units. The story appeared in the Arizona Republic for one day on page 8 of the Metro section, under a headline that did not mention his military service. There was no follow-up coverage. There was no congressional inquiry. There was no policy change at Public Storage. 3 weeks after Anthony's death, an employee at the same Bell Road facility told a local journalist on background that the company had distributed an internal memo reminding facility managers to enforce the no habitation policy. The journalist requested a copy of the memo through the company's media relations office. The request was denied. The journalist filed a follow-up request. It was never answered. The Bell Road facility currently has, according to estimates from veterans organizations operating in Phoenix, approximately 14 residents living inside its units. None of them know Anthony Reeves's name. The self-storage market in the United States is worth approximately $39 billion annually. The 5 largest companies, Public Storage, Extra Space Storage, CubeSmart, Life Storage, and U-Haul, control approximately 40% of the market. Every major chain has a corporate policy that explicitly prohibits the use of storage units for human habitation. Every major chain has facility managers who know it is happening and choose not to enforce the policy. The reason is simple. An occupied unit generates revenue, whether the occupant is storing furniture or sleeping inside. The legal liability of an unauthorized resident is real, but rarely enforced. As long as the rent is paid on time and the tenant does not draw attention, the corporate offices have no incentive to investigate. Several former managers I spoke with described an unwritten rule among themselves. You do not check units after business hours. You do not respond to noise complaints unless they are repeated. You do not ask questions when a tenant pays cash for 36 consecutive months. The math works for everyone except the men inside. The Vietnam generation is now in its final decade. The men who came home in 1970 and 1971, who were spit on at airports and refused jobs and abandoned by every institution that should have caught them, are now in their 70s. They have been homeless in cycles or continuously for 50 years. They are dying in storage units and tent encampments in the back rooms of relatives who finally agreed to take them in for what everyone understands is the final stretch. The Iraq and Afghanistan generation has just begun to arrive at the same destination. The first wave of veterans from the post-2001 conflicts is now in their 40s and 50s. The patterns that produce 50 years of Vietnam-era homelessness are repeating in real time with a new cohort. Researchers at the RAND Corporation projected in 2021 that the homeless population from those wars will peak between 2035 and 2045. The infrastructure to receive them does not exist. The political will to build that infrastructure does not exist either. In the meantime, the storage units fill up. The padlocks click shut at sundown. The mylar blankets reflect the body heat of men who once carried rifles for this country. I told you at the beginning of this video that Anthony Reeves did everything Dale does, that he followed every rule, that he still did not survive the night. I told you I would tell you what he did wrong. Here is what he did wrong. Anthony's mistake was not the propane heater. The propane heater is what killed him, but the propane heater was the consequence of the mistake. The mistake was older. The mistake was that Anthony had stopped going outside. The rule that Marcus taught Dale. The rule that everyone in the units learns within the first month. The 5:55 departure, the morning ritual. You leave the unit before the sun comes up. You do not return until after dark. The rule exists because the rule is what keeps you alive. Anthony had been laid off from the construction job in 2019 with a back injury that never fully healed. He had been losing weight for 18 months. He had stopped going to Planet Fitness. He had stopped walking to the UPS store. By October of 2022, he was inside the unit 22 hours a day. He had sealed the door because he could no longer tolerate the cold. He had bought the propane heater because the candles were not enough. The unit became the entire world, and the entire world ran out of oxygen. The men who survive in these units survive because they refuse to let the unit become a home. They keep moving. They keep showing up to the parking lot at 5:55. They keep the cot folded by sunrise. They keep the appearance of belonging somewhere else. The moment a man stops doing those things, the unit closes around him. The mylar walls become the only walls. The padlock becomes the only door. And the country that put him there finally finishes the job. Dale knows this. Marcus knows this. Robert knows this. They watch each other from a distance, and they make sure none of them disappears the way Anthony disappeared. It is 5:59 in Tucson. Dale finishes setting up the solar panel. He folds the morning paper under his arm. He walks back to his truck in the corner of the parking lot. He will sit there until 8, and then he will drive to a coffee shop on Speedway Boulevard, and he will read the paper and nurse a refill for 2 hours, and he will not return to Unit 247 until after dark. The orange security lights buzz overhead. The camera sweeps its slow arc across the gravel. The facility manager arrives at 7:45 and unlocks the office. She waves at Dale through the window of his truck. She does not know him. She does not have to. That was the entire design. If this is the first time you have heard any of this, you are not alone. Most Americans do not know. Most Americans were never told. If you served, drop your branch and your years in the comments. If you know someone who served, drop their name. We read every comment. The first step in changing what happens to the next generation of veterans is making sure this generation does not disappear without a witness. Subscribe. If you want to keep finding out what the system would prefer, you never learn. Next time, we go inside the underground network of veteran-run safe houses in the American Southwest, in the 1987 Department of Defense memo that explains why the system was built to fail these men in the first place.